There is a fake farm name on a pork product in Tesco's right now that doesn't exist. That farm was invented by the marketing team with a British name printed over it, but ships in from Holland. In November 2016, criminals drained £2.25 million out of more than 8,000 real Tesco bank accounts in a single weekend, after the bank had already been warned it was coming. And 3 weeks ago, Tesco pulled its own finest salmon off the shelves over a bug the safety watchdog says can kill a newborn. That's not a run of bad luck. That's Tesco, the biggest supermarket in Britain, that won Britain over with 3 gentle words: every little helps. And every little does help, it just helps Tesco's, not you. And here's what they're hoping you don't figure out: the gram of beef lifted out of your lasagna, the face scan they log as soon as you walk through the door, the penny of margin slipped onto your fuel, the Clubcard loyalty card turning your weekly shop into a product sold onto 450 brands. So we're fighting back. Today, I'm counting down 17 things Tesco does that quietly work against you. Number 17. You've used the self-checkout. Tesco sells it to you as convenience, quicker, easier, scan and go. What it doesn't mention is that since the middle of last year, some of those checkouts are watching you do it. Tesco fitted cameras above the self-scan tills, wired into a system that films your hands and the bagging area as you work. The moment an item doesn't register properly, the screen freezes, plays a little video clip of you back at yourself and flashes up the line: the last item wasn't scanned properly. Please remove it from the bagging area and try again. You on a replay screen in the middle of your own weekly shop. Shoppers gave it a nickname almost immediately. They call it the VAR checkout. After the video referee in football, one described the experience as VAR decision. Tuna disallowed. And they were not amused. Can't believe customer service is now so in the bin, one wrote. You're constantly treated like a thief. Another, I hate these things. You can't go anywhere without a camera in your face. Some said they'd stop using the self-checkout altogether. Tesco won't say how many stores have it, only that it's spreading. It just calls the system quicker and easier. So let's be clear about the trade. The machine already replaced the cashier who used to serve you. Now you do that person's job for free, and the shop films you doing it in slow motion, ready to play it back the second it decides you've made a mistake. That's not a checkout. That's an audition, and you didn't know you were being judged. Quick thing before we carry on. Hyping a video is the single strongest signal you can send YouTube to put this in front of more shoppers. So if you want more people warned before their next Tesco shop, give it a tap. Number 16. You'd assume the cameras in a supermarket are just ordinary security cameras. Passive, recording in case something happens. In some Tesco stores from the start of this year, they do a great deal more than that. At the end of January this year, Tesco began a 10-week trial across 40 stores in Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire. Here's how it works. After an incident, staff pull a still image of a person from the CCTV and run it through facial recognition software built by a firm from New Zealand called Aura. The software then matches that face against a private database of people flagged across other shops. A watch list of shoppers' faces run out of what Tesco calls its security hub. There are notices up in the trial stores telling you it's happening if you know to look. To be accurate, this is done after the fact. It isn't scanning every customer's face live at the door. But hold on to what's actually being built here: a shop, compiling a facial database of the public, and a technology firm whose reach across British retail kept growing right through this year. This is a supermarket doing a job that used to belong to the police, quietly in-house with your face as the evidence. And the campaign group Big Brother Watch, which fights this technology across the industry, argues it turns shoppers into suspects, putting ordinary people onto secret watch lists with no way to know they're on one and no way to appeal. It says misidentification has already seen innocent shoppers wrongly branded as thieves. The corner shop your parents used knew your name because it liked you. This one keeps your face in a filing cabinet in case it doesn't. Number 15. Every little helps, the slogan says, right down to the fuel. You pull into a Tesco petrol station assuming the price is keen because it's Tesco, and Tesco does cheap. The competition regulator looked at exactly that and did not agree. In July 2023, the Competition and Markets Authority, the government's own competition watchdog, published a study of supermarket fuel. It found the profit margin the supermarkets take on your petrol had climbed from 4.5 pence a litre in 2019 to nearly 11 pence by 2022. And it named Tesco directly. While two rivals pushed up their margin targets, the watchdog said, the two other supermarket fuel retailers, Sainsbury's and Tesco, maintained largely passive pricing policies, pricing by reference to local competitors, following the money up rather than competing it down. And you paid for that. The CMA reckoned the higher margins cost drivers around £900 million in a single year, roughly £75 million a month out of ordinary tanks. On diesel, it worked out at 13 pence a litre more. This was a study, not a court case, no fine, and the watchdog put Tesco among the followers, not the ringleaders. But here's the part that should bother you. It hasn't stopped. The CMA's own monitoring right up to this year still finds those fuel margins at historically high levels. Its June figure put them at more than 11 pence a litre, nearly double what they were before all this began. The referee has written the name down more than once, and nothing much has changed. When you're that big, you don't have to win on price. You just have to not lose people. And where else are you going to fill up? Number 14. You probably think the reason there's a giant Tesco near you and not much choice around it is just how the town grew. Sometimes it's more deliberate than that. In February 2020, the same competition watchdog caught Tesco doing something very specific with land. Under rules brought in back in 2010, Tesco isn't allowed to use property deals to block rival supermarkets from opening nearby. The CMA found it had broken those rules 23 times, 3 brand new restrictive agreements created after the ban, plus 20 deals that locked competitors out of nearby land for far longer than the law allows. Read what that actually is. These are arrangements designed to stop a competing supermarket, often a cheaper one, from opening on a plot near an existing Tesco. In the watchdog's own words, by making it harder for other supermarkets to open stores next to its branches, shoppers could have lost out. It said the deals may have reduced competition and so lowered choice, which leaves shoppers worse off. Tesco said it had spotted the breaches itself, called them administrative, and was ordered to unwind every one of them, retrain its staff and submit to ongoing monitoring. It was not fined, but sit with the picture. The reason your options feel thin, one enormous shop, and not a lot else within a sensible drive may not be an accident of the map. It may be the small print in a property file working exactly as it was meant to. Number 13. The Clubcard feels like a gift. Points, a few quid back, and those yellow Clubcard prices that are cheaper than the shelf. Tesco says they save you up to £375 a year. But turn the card over and look at it from Tesco's side of the till, because that's where the real value sits. The whole thing began with a warning Tesco gave itself. When the Clubcard was first trialled in the 90s, the boss of Tesco at the time looked at what it could do and told his team, "What scares me about this is that you know more about my customers after 3 months than I know after 30 years. The man who built it went on to coin a phrase that's now everywhere in business: data is the new oil. 3 decades later, that oil well is enormous. The Clubcard feeds a data business Tesco runs with a firm called dunnhumby, built on the shopping habits of more than 20 million households, described in Tesco's own sales pitch as nearly every home in the UK. That firm sells what it learns from your trolley to some of the biggest companies on the planet, the likes of Procter & Gamble and Coca-Cola, and in a single year, it ran more than 17,000 targeted advertising campaigns off the back of ordinary shopping like yours. Over 450 brands have used it to aim advertising straight at you based on what you actually put in your basket. Tesco itself confirms it builds what it calls custom audiences on Facebook, Google, and others from your shopping, so the brand of coffee you buy can follow you onto your phone and into the ad break of your favorite program on the telly. So here's the trade you're really making. The discount is the bait. Your behavior, every item, every week, every habit is the product. And campaigners at Big Brother Watch named Tesco one of the worst offenders for hoovering up shopper data, warning it's turning the cost of living crisis into a cost of privacy one. As their researcher put it, your data is becoming the price you pay to save money. And that's the quiet catch. The best prices on around 8,000 products now sit behind that card. Hand over the data or pay more. There's no third option where you just get the cheap price and keep your business to yourself. Tesco is careful to say it does not sell any data. It collects from customers to third parties. Read that closely. It doesn't sell the file. It sells advertisers access to the people in it, to you. That's a distinction that matters far more to Tesco's lawyers than it does to your weekly shop. It isn't a loyalty card. It's the most detailed diary anyone has ever kept on your family, and you're the one paying to write it. Number 12. The entire point of a Clubcard price is to show you a saving. For a long time, you couldn't even work out whether it was saving you anything. In June 2023, the consumer group, which, was concerned enough to make a formal super complaint to the regulator. The reason? Tesco was leaving the unit price off its Clubcard tickets. The unit price is that little figure, the price per 100 grams or per litre, and it's the one number that lets you compare a deal against a normal size pack and see if it's genuinely cheaper. Tesco was, in Which's words, the standout offender. Its rival Sainsbury's had been showing that figure on its loyalty prices for months. And these aren't a handful of products. Clubcard prices cover around 8,000 lines and account for more than 80% of everything Tesco sells. Under pressure, Tesco committed to adding those unit prices back from February 2024, which is as good as admitting they should have been there all along. And it's still going wrong. This month in July, the trade press reported a fault where some of Tesco's new personalised Clubcard prices, offers set just for you from your own buying history, were actually higher than the standard shelf price. Own label sunflower oil rang up at £1.55, when the shelf right in front of it said £1.49. Tesco said this was very rare and that it always honours the lowest price. But think about what a personalised price that's dearer than the normal price actually is. It isn't a saving tailored to you, it's a bet tailored to you that you won't look. Number 11. Here's that tomato tin from the very start. Tesco slaps an Aldi price match badge on hundreds of products. 761 of them. In fact, more branded lines than any rival scheme. The promise is simple and reassuring. Don't bother driving to the discounter. We've matched them on price. So you may as well stay here. Then the consumer group, which checked what's actually in the tin. In October last year, it compared the matched products side by side. A tin of Tesco's Aldi price match chopped tomatoes is 65% tomato. The Aldi tin it claims to match is 70%. Same price on the sticker, less food in the can. And which found that's the trick baked into the whole scheme. The matched product is not always the exact same product. It matches the price. It does not have to match the recipe, the size, or the quality. So you pay the same money for a tin with less tomato in it, and you do it trusting a badge that was only ever a promise about the number on the shelf edge, never about what's behind it. Do that across a trolley full of matched own label products, and the saving you thought you were getting quietly leaks back out, tin by tin. The price is matched. The tomato isn't. You're buying the badge, not the tin. Number 10. An own brand ready meal. Same box you've always bought, same spot on the shelf, same price. Except they changed what's inside it, and they didn't tell you. In January 2024, which investigated what it called skimpflation, where the pack stays the same and the recipe gets cheaper. Tesco's own brand, beef lasagna, the 1.5 kilo one had dropped from 23% beef down to 19%. Its finest sausages, the premium range, the one you trade up to, went from 97% pork to 90%. A Tex-Mex enchiladas meal fell from 27% chicken to 20%. Name what that is. Less meat, same price, no announcement. Drinkflation you might at least catch by spotting a smaller pack. This you can't see at all because the box never changed, only the food behind the cardboard did. More than a third of shoppers told, which they'd noticed their favourite products quietly getting worse, and the watchdog's verdict was blunt: supermarkets must be more upfront when they change a recipe. Tesco wasn't upfront, it just took a little out and left the price where it was. And remember whose fault this is. These are Tesco's own products, on Tesco's own label. Nobody forced this on them. Somebody sat in a meeting and decided your lasagna could survive on a bit less beef, and that you probably wouldn't notice. They didn't put the price up. They took the meat out. Same box, less dinner. Number 9. You've felt the packs getting smaller. What you might have missed is the price going the other way at the very same time. In that same investigation, which cracked a bottle of Listerine mouthwash on Tesco's shelves, shrinking from 600 millilitres to 500, while the price went up by 52 pence, which works out per 100 millilitres as paying 21% more for 17% less. A 46% jump for a smaller bottle. And it wasn't alone. A bag of kettle chips lost 20 grams. Coffee Mate went from 500 grams to 450. Even the McVitie's dark chocolate digestives got lighter. And look at last Easter when which weighed the chocolate eggs. A Galaxy extra large egg went from 252 grams at £6 to 210 grams at 7. Smaller egg, bigger price, about 40% more per gram. The Malteser's egg did almost exactly the same. Yes, it's the manufacturers who shrink these packs, but it's Tesco that sets the shelf price and Tesco that put it up as the thing got smaller. That's the con in a single sentence. Less product, more money. Betting you're too rushed at the end of the aisle to do the maths. We're past halfway now, and the two you'll remember longest, the horse and the hole Tesco dug in its own books, are still coming. Stay with me. Number 8. Walk the fresh aisles in Tesco and you'll pass cosy British farm names. Rosedene Farms on the fruit. Woodside Farms on the pork. Boswell Farms on the beef. Willow Farms on the chicken. Nightingale Farms on the salad. Redmere Farms on the veg. It reads like proper British farming, a patchwork of little producers, all supplying your local shop. None of those farms exists. In March 2016, Tesco launched 7 of these farm brands in a single go to replace its old value range. They are fictional, names dreamed up in an office to sit over its cheapest everyday food. And the homely British picture they paint is often the opposite of the truth. The Woodside Farms pork has come from Holland, Denmark and Germany. The Boswell Farms beef from Ireland. The Nightingale salad from Spain and Morocco. Suntrail Farms is imported fruit and nothing else. The country of origin is printed on the pack, yes, but the warm, invented farm name is the first thing your eye lands on, and it's doing a very specific job. Here's the part that stings. There are real farmers with those exact names. A Nottinghamshire pig farmer runs a genuine Woodside farm. A real Boswell farm exists too. One of those farmers put it plainly, it's an abuse of power. They're trying to conjure up an image of something that isn't the reality. The National Farmers Union, the body that represents Britain's actual farmers, reported the whole thing to Trading Standards. After a poll found around 3 in 5 shoppers assumed those supermarket farms were British and said they'd feel misled to learn imported food was hiding under the same names. And it worked so well that 10 years on in 2026, those made-up farms are still sitting right there on the Tesco website. When the real farmers complained, Tesco's answer was that its ranges had passed the necessary trading standards checks and that customer feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Read that again. The feedback is positive because the picture works, and the picture is a fiction. That's the whole trick, admitted out loud. A real farm name would tell you where your food came from. An invented one is designed so you never think to ask. Number 7. That smell of warm bread as you walk through the door. The sign that told you for years this was bread expertly baked in store since 1968. Comforting, and campaigners say, almost entirely theatre. In May 2024, the Real Bread campaign made a formal complaint to Trading Standards about those baked-in-store claims. Its count of Tesco's roughly 3,500 stores, only around 250 do any scratch baking at all, and only about 56, around 1.5%, bake all their bread properly from scratch. The rest, it says, are handed pre-made, frozen or part-baked loaves from distant factories and simply brown them off in the shop oven. The campaign has a name for what that turns the in-store bakery into. It calls them loaf tanning salons, and there's a real cost behind the pantomime. A restructure a few years back put around 1,800 skilled baker jobs at risk, as proper baking was quietly swapped for browning off. The smell stayed, the bakers went, and this isn't a new habit. Back in 2010, the advertising watchdog upheld a complaint against a near-identical Tesco advert that boasted baked from scratch in our in-store bakery. Tesco's own figures at the time showed only around 500 of its 2,500 stores baked from scratch, while more than 1,200 used part-baked product finished off in store. The regulator ruled the claim likely to mislead and said it mustn't appear again. That was 16 years ago. When a reporter put the fresh complaint to Tesco, it said the wording was correct for that particular store. And here's the tell it won't put on a poster. This July 2026, Tesco quietly dropped expertly baked in store since 1968 from the signage altogether. You don't take down a slogan you're proud of, you take down one you can no longer defend. 16 years, same smell, same story, finally lifted off the wall. Number 6. You might think this next one has nothing to do with you, that it's a private matter between Tesco and the businesses that supply it. It's the same instinct that ends up on your receipt, so stay with it. In January 2016, the Groceries Code Adjudicator, the watchdog set up specifically to police how the big supermarkets treat their suppliers, delivered a formal ruling on Tesco's conduct. It was the first full investigation the adjudicator had ever carried out, and it found Tesco had seriously breached the legally binding code. The core finding, in the adjudicator's own words, Tesco had knowingly delayed paying money to suppliers in order to improve its own financial position. Read that back slowly. A company the size of Tesco deliberately sitting on money it owed to smaller businesses to make its own accounts look healthier. The adjudicator said she was troubled to see Tesco prioritizing its own finances over treating suppliers fairly, and catalogued the tactics: money taken out of suppliers' payments without agreement, deductions used as leverage, delays that ran on for months. One supplier was owed a sum running into the millions and only got it back after more than 2 years. The British producers who filled Tesco's shelves had, in effect, been turned into an interest-free overdraft. Tesco's response was 3 words: "We are sorry." And it escaped a fine for one reason only: the power to fine supermarkets for this came in just after the breach, so it couldn't be used. The adjudicator made clear that, had she had that power, she'd have considered a penalty. A company that squeezes its own suppliers to make the books look better is a company with a habit. Hold on to that. It's the exact behavior that lands us 4 numbers from now at number 1. Number 5. Tesco employs more people than almost any company in Britain. The person on the till who knows your face, the one stacking the shelves, the one who points you to the tinned soup. And it is fighting a very large claim that it underpaid a lot of them, for years because they were women. Around 60,000 mostly female shop floor workers say they were paid up to £5.50 an hour less than the staff in Tesco's distribution warehouses, where roughly 9 in 10 workers are men, for work of equal value. Now, this is a claim and Tesco denies it, but it has been grinding through the courts for years, and Tesco keeps losing the arguments that would kill it. Europe's top court ruled the 2 sets of workers can be compared. And in May 2026, the Court of Appeal threw out almost all of Tesco's appeal. The lawyers bringing the case put the potential bill at up to £4 billion. Tesco's own figure is 1.7. Either way, it's one of the biggest equal pay fights in British history. And it fits a pattern with its own staff. Years ago, Tesco promised a group of warehouse workers a pay top-up it described, in writing, as guaranteed for life, to persuade them to move sites instead of taking redundancy. Then, in 2021, it tried to take that pay for life away, offering them a lump sum worth 18 months of the money to sign the promise off, and warning that anyone who refused would be dismissed and offered their own job back without it. The workers' union fought it all the way to the Supreme Court, and in September 2024, the court blocked Tesco, 5 judges to 0. A promise the company itself had called permanent, that it then tried to fire people to escape. Here's the backdrop to all of it. In the same window, Tesco was fighting its own staff over £5.50 an hour, and cutting around 380 jobs, it booked a record profit of over £3 billion and handed its shareholders £750 million in a share buyback. The union that represents the staff called the cuts devastating, landing so soon after the company crowed about record results. Record profit upstairs, a fight over £5.50 an hour downstairs. Same company, same year. Number 4. Strip everything else away, and there's one thing you actually go to Tesco for: food you can trust to be safe. This year has been a bad year for that. On Tesco's own label, Just 3 weeks ago, on the 4th of July, Tesco recalled its own finest Scottish smoked salmon, the premium range, the one you buy when you want something a bit special because it might contain listeria. 6 batches pulled from shelves, notices going up at the tills. And listeria is a slow one. It can take up to 3 weeks to make a person ill, which means anyone who'd already eaten it wouldn't necessarily connect the two. And it is not a mild one. The recall notice itself warned that in vulnerable people, the infection can be severe and can lead to serious complications, and named exactly who those people are: pregnant women, newborn babies, older adults, and anyone with a weakened immune system. Tesco's own name, on the range you trust most, carrying a warning like that. And it wasn't a one-off. In February, Tesco recalled its grape and berry medley fruit pots because salmonella had been found in them. Last October, its Free from Breadcrumbs, the range made specifically for people with food allergies, were recalled because they contained wheat and gluten that wasn't declared on the label. Think about that one for a second. The single shelf an allergy sufferer is told is the safe shelf, carrying the exact ingredient that could put them in hospital. And yes, these were precautionary recalls, the system catching a risk before anyone was reported harmed, and one of them caught by Tesco's own testing. That is the process doing its job. But a run of them in a single year on the everyday own-label food that millions of families reach for without a second thought, the fruit pot, the fish, the free from loaf, isn't bad luck. It's a pattern. The one label that's supposed to be beyond doubt is your own supermarket's name. In 2026, that name kept turning up on the recall notices. Number 3. Tesco has never been only a shop. For years, it ran a bank, Tesco Bank, holding real customers' current accounts, their actual wages and savings. And for one weekend, that money wasn't safe. In November 2016, over a single weekend, criminals exploited weaknesses in Tesco Bank's systems, in the way its debit cards were designed and its fraud controls were run, and took around £2.25 million out of more than 8,000 customer accounts. Money moving out of ordinary people's accounts, in real time, while they slept. The financial regulator, the FCA, did not treat it as bad luck. And here's the part that should never have happened. Tesco Bank had already been warned. In the days before the raid, the same kind of fraud was caught being tested on its cards abroad, with suspicious transactions flagged in Brazil and the United States, and the bank failed to act on it. So when the weekend came, the door the regulator says should have been bolted was still wide open. There were weaknesses baked into the very design of its debit cards and into the team meant to catch exactly this. And once the raid began, it was too slow to shut anything while the money poured out. In October 2018, it fined the bank £16.4 million. And that figure was already generous. It had been cut by more than half for cooperation and early settlement. The starting point was over £33 million. The regulator's enforcement chief put it flatly: the FCA has no tolerance for banks that fail to protect customers from foreseeable risks. Tesco did refund the customers who lost money, but the watchdog's point stands, and it's a simple one. The single thing a bank has to do above cheap fuel, above loyalty points, above absolutely everything is keep your money where you left it. For one weekend, the company behind the biggest shop in Britain couldn't manage it. Number 2. The cheapest own brand burgers in the freezer. Tesco's everyday value range, the box a family counting every single pound reaches for. In 2013, the country found out what was really in them. In mid-January that year, food safety testing in Ireland examined 27 beef burger samples from across the supermarkets. 10 of them contained horse DNA. And the worst of the lot by a distance was Tesco's everyday value beef burger, horse meat at around 29%, relative to the beef. Not a trace, not a rounding error. Nearly a third of the burger, the single highest level of any product caught in the scandal that tore across Europe that winter. Understand what that is. You weren't sold beef that had a problem. You were sold horse with the word beef on the box. It came up through Tesco's own supply chain from a meat supplier it later dropped, cutting the cheapest protein it could find into the burgers bought by the people who could least afford to be lied to. Tesco stripped the everyday value burgers and its frozen quarter-pounders off the shelves, but by then the boxes were already in freezers in kitchens up and down the country. The food safety authorities were clear that there was no risk to anyone's health. This was fraud, not poison. And in a way, that's worse. Nobody's body was harmed, only their trust. Tesco knew exactly how big it was. It took out full-page adverts in the national newspapers that read, "We and our supplier have let you down, and we apologise." It offered refunds with no receipt required, an apology that big only comes after a lie that big. They put horse in the nation's cheapest burgers and had to buy the front page to say, sorry. Number 1. Everything on this list so far has been Tesco doing something to you. To your tin, to your ready meal, to your face at the checkout, and the money in your account. Number 1 is the one where Tesco did it to itself, inflated its own numbers, got caught and paid a criminal penalty for it. In September 2014, Tesco was forced to admit it had overstated its own profits. It began as a £250 million hole. By the time the accountants had finished counting, it had grown to £326 million, a third of £1 billion of profit that was never actually there. The way it was done has a familiar ring, booking money from suppliers before it had genuinely been earned, and pushing costs off into the future to hit the profit targets the city was expecting. The same instinct as number 6, this time turned on its own accounts. The Serious Fraud Office investigated, and in April 2017, Tesco's UK business admitted false accounting and agreed to pay a penalty of almost £129 million in a deal to avoid being prosecuted in a criminal court. These deals are rare. This was only the 4th of its kind ever approved in Britain, signed off by one of the most senior judges in the country. You don't reach for something that rare over a paperwork slip. That's not the end of it. Separately, the financial regulator found the company had misled the market, put out in its words a false or misleading impression about the value of Tesco's shares, and for the first time ever, used a special power to order the company to hand around £85 million back to the roughly 10,000 investors it had misled. I'm going to be precise here because it matters. This was the company admitting fault, a deal to avoid a trial, not a jury's guilty verdict, and the individual executives who were later charged were all found not guilty. But the company's own admission stands on the public record, £250 million of profit conjured out of nothing. In the one set of numbers, a team of auditors is paid to check. So if this made you look twice at your own receipt, tell me in the comments which supermarket we should pull apart next. Your suggestions decide what we investigate. Subscribe, and we'll do it again next week.